Hey everybody, it's Catherine, and I am sharing today the SNAP word or word of the week routine that we use in our reading classes. And we found that this routine really helps build up student academic vocabulary. It helps build their reading stamina, and it also helps them get some practice on star type questions without making all day every day some kind of awful passages in question situation. So it frees you up to do things that are really authentic and engaging with your students. So I'm going to show you two ways to access these resources and how to use them. And I'm going to use seventh grade English language arts as a model. So if you are on the Pasadena Intermediate ELAR website, you can do it. You can click your grade level, and then you get to your landing page, and then if you just scroll, the very first thing that's not the project links is the STAR Academic Vocabulary Multiple Choice Practice. And so there's a keyword lesson that you would do at the beginning of the school year, and in that lesson it'll teach the kids how to determine what in a question stem is a keyword that's going to help them be really efficient when they search for their answers. And you can see that lesson in there. There are note takers, and then each thing has two files. So the first file is going to have the PowerPoint, and when you open up the PowerPoint, it has, dun, dun, dun. Of course, it's going to take a second to load because I'm trying to record. It'll have the word, the definition, and then we look at other forms of the word. And the reason that we do that is sometimes kids get tripped up when we have different prefixes and suffixes, and they don't realize that the word they know is right here. It just has a different ending. And so being really careful to make sure to explicitly teach those endings helps kids understand when they encounter that word. Synonyms, and when we talk about synonyms, it's not necessarily an exact synonym like you would find in a thesaurus. It's another word on the STAR test that means kids have to do the same kind of thinking. Then we give them an antonym, and we will also look up either cognates or translations, Spanish translations, um, and those are there. Then we give them example sentences, and that's the first day. So they take the notes. It's really important to have them say the word in the definition to activate their brains. They really need to speak it to be able to acquire that language. And then we have them take notes here. We have them take notes here if it means something to them. If they're not bilingual, then it probably won't help them to write those down. But if they are, it helps. So we just let, differentiate kid by kid there. We have them jot down one of the example sentences, and then that's day one. Then then the next day, probably Tuesday, the kids get a STAR question, and what we do with that is that's what these Word documents are, or well, probably I'll save them as Google Docs after this. So the kid gets the handout, and we only do one question. We don't do both questions on a day because we want to spread out the exposure to the word over the course of the week, because if they do all the questions in one day, they're only getting practice with that word on one day, and it doesn't give their brain the repeated access it needs to store it in long-term memory. So it's important to spread out the multiple choice questions over the week. But we have them circle the keyword in the question, read the passage by themselves. And that's really important because one of the things we're trying to do is to build their reading stamina. You know that sometimes kids have trouble with longer texts, and so the texts get progressively longer and longer, and they don't push back as much once it's built into this routine because it starts small, and then as the passage gets gradually longer, the kids just have already built that expectation that they're reading independently, and so you don't get as much complaining. So it's really important to make sure they're doing it independently from the beginning. We have them answer the question, and then we have them highlight the text evidence that supports the question. If you're doing this in class, our recommendation is that you set a timer for no more than 6 minutes to complete this process. And while kids are working, you walk around with a marker or a stamp or something like that. And then as kids get each one of those things right, you can give them a stamp. So you can stamp for correct keywords, you can stamp for a correct answer, and you can stamp for text evidence. Then when you are done, when the kids are done, because you've walked around and hopefully even jotted down on some kind of clipboard what answer choice each student chose, you can call on some students who got it wrong and are representative of answers that the class got wrong. And then you can talk about, okay, what was your text evidence? Why did you choose that answer? And then you can call on somebody who got it right and talk about why the text evidence does or doesn't support the correct, the correct answer. And that way kids really start to understand how these tests are put together. And so the whole routine shouldn't take more than 10 minutes of your class period. It shouldn't be go into like a 20-minute thing. And if you're really careful about building those routines and being in with the timer and everything, then that's easily accomplished. So thinking about distance learning in PL, we are working through ways to make this process work for either in more self-paced or independent. So in our Google Classroom, and what I've done is we have a Google Slide note taker. So the kids just make a copy for themselves and then they have their notes where they can fill in all the things from the slides. And then I recorded YouTube videos of going over those slides for taking the notes. So the kids can be self-sufficient there. And you can see the video is only a minute. So the kids would have to pause to be able to kind of write down their notes, but that gives them a little independence. And then what we've done with the actual question is put it into a Google form. So ideally, you would have the kids in class and they would be doing it on paper so they could practice how to do that process and what it feels like on the real test. But if we're home because there's a hurricane or a virus or something like that, maybe that's not possible. So what we did was we have a photo. This is not editable. We have a photo up at the top of the Google form where it has the passage and the question. Then we just have them type in what are the two most important keywords. And then here's the question, and they choose their answer choice. And then down here, we ask them copy and paste the text evidence that supports your answer into the blank. And then they can select text here, copy it, and then paste it in here. And that is kind of interesting for teachers as a data kind of thing, because it'll populate into a spreadsheet and you will be able, see, it's not going to let me submit because I didn't do the work. You will get a spreadsheet that has the kid, and then it will give you which answer choice they picked, and then you'll be able to have that right next to the text evidence they selected. So you can kind of get an idea where kids might need some support, where they might need some intervention and practice and things like that. So those things are available to you. Like I said, you can either go through the website or go through Google Classroom to push it out to the kids. But we hope that everybody takes advantage of this because we found a lot of growth and it's a really worthy investment for not too much time. So if you have questions, you can always ask your campus coach or you can call me, Catherine, at the Ad Building, or email me at cleach@pasadenaisd.org. Thanks so much.